Here on The Colour of Country Life, we're chatting with the member for Grey, Rowan Ramsey. How are you, Rowan?
Going very well, thanks, Ricky. In Port Lincoln today, should end up Ceduna. That's just to life on the travel.
Oh, good. We'll be hearing from you all through the next 4 or 5 weeks, I guess, going into a federal election on the 21st of May. The starter's pistol's now been fired.
Yeah, that's right. It's a full 3 years, just about exactly 3 years since we had the last election. It's one of those vagaries that every state parliament in Australia is on 4-year parliamentary terms and we're still on 3. I wish it was 4. I think it would be better for the nation, but that would require some constitutional changes.
Well, I think the United Kingdom has 5-year terms, don't they?
Yeah, well, they do, and so do a number of other provinces. But unlike the states, that would require there's about 3 changes to the constitution, so we'd need a referendum for that. And then I think it always gets put in the too hard basket with the referendums in Australia, but it is what it is. When you look around the world, I think we should be absolutely wrapped. We're having an election, and we'll have an election and no spill, no blood, and get on with the job, because democracies are under siege in many countries. You only got to look at Ukraine, but not only there. What we do in Australia is an exemplar to the rest of the world, so we should be all proud of the system, I think.
Yeah, well, should we be proud of Australia's economic management? I guess when you look at comparative to other countries, we have more frequent elections, but really the country generally, even during, when others were in recession, we seem to have managed it pretty well in Australia.
It's a fantastic result, almost unbelievable when you look at the rest of the world. With what's been thrown at government in the last 2.5 years, with COVID-19 has been astonishing. At the beginning of all this, Treasury was predicting we'd go close to 15% unemployment. We're at 4%, and that was highlighted by Mr Albanese, but we're at 4% now and heading lower. And at the same time, we've kept businesses open, kept people attached to the employers. That was the JobKeeper packages. We've invested an enormous amount in infrastructure, and somebody said to me about, what about the roads in Grey? And I said, well, the biggest complaint I get at the moment is people saying, well, there's too many go slow signs. Like, there's roadworks on virtually every major road across the electorate at the moment. We've been able to do that during this really difficult period, which is enabled to keep this full employment, if you like, running throughout, despite all the interruptions of COVID and like at the moment, my local pub's shut because the staff have got COVID. So it's really disruptive. But despite all that, we are still really knocking the spots off the economy.
Well, when you look at the South Australian economy and how that was travelling, and even the relative impact of the COVID illness, and people hadn't really suffered as many deaths as in other states or around the world, and yet the Marshall Liberal government was comprehensively thrown out. Was it a bit of a wake-up call for the Liberal Party in SA?
Well, I don't know that wake up is the right word, and if you're talking about the federal implications, I guess we're unsure of them. It's difficult to put your finger on just what it was, but I think part of it, at least, is while people were very appreciative in the early year or year and a half of COVID, if you like, of governments saving their lives, keeping the virus largely out of Australia. I think that the advent of Omicron, which came after Delta, really come up and hit the South Australian government, at least in the back of the head. They'd opened up the borders, and 3 days later, Omicron came along. And I think in the end, people were just going, I don't care whose fault this is. I'm just sick of it, and you're the government, so we'll put some of the blame on you. Now, whether or not that's going to swing through into the federal election, I don't know. But I don't get the feeling when I'm travelling around this electorate, whether it's from the bottom of York Peninsula to out in the Yadunda, the eastern side of the electorate, right through to Ceduna, where I'm going tonight, that people are really angry with the government. I think most people recognise that we've done more than a pretty reasonable job, done an excellent job of polling in Australia through this period. And while they're sick of COVID, and while they're not incredibly happy with lots of bits and pieces, hopefully they'll give us credit for that.
Now, when it comes to unfinished business in Grey, I'm sure you've got some. What are some of the things you're campaigning on to achieve in the next term if you are returned as the member for Grey?
Yeah, well, I've had really good success, I suppose, in getting headspaces units into grey. We've now got 4, and 3 of those have come under my watch, and I'm hoping to attract one for Port Pirie. I'm working on that. More mobile phone towers. Like we've had 49 come under the Black Spots program, and now we've got another $813 million program to carry us through the next few years. So want to see some more success there. People know I've been working on doctor shortages pretty much the most of the time I've been the member for Grey. And while we've had a whole host of new programs and supports for regional doctors, rural doctors, trying to attract the right people into medicine, we've got record numbers of doctors in training in Australia. We've still got these shortages in rural Australia. And I have for long championed this idea of postcode-specific Medicare provider numbers. Now, I think whatever solution we have, we'll have to have some recognition of where the services are being delivered and where they're not being delivered, and that comes back to postcode. So I'm working on some material to address some of the worst patches in Grey at the moment. I'm hopeful of getting some progress. Obviously, we've got a large federal block of money sitting on the table for the establishment of the hydrogen industry in Grey, and all the arrows seem to be pointing to Whyalla, which would be a great outcome. There's $73 million sitting on the table there, waiting for, we're dealing with companies at the moment trying to progress that along. I think we had an announcement about, I'm going to say 5 or 6 weeks ago, Ricky, where $100 million going into advanced protein manufacturing down on the Adelaide Plains.
Yep.
I think a substantial part of that is likely to be in the electorate of Grey. And I think that's the way forward. That comes out of the modern manufacturing initiative, and there will be more rounds of that. And we've had rounds before, and needing to focus on, I think, industries where we've accepted, well, it's cheaper to import it. Let's do that. Where now we're seeing interrupted supply chains around the world, and need to become self-sufficient and or export our technologies. Now, given that really modern plants require computers and robots and all those kinds of things, I think we're getting to the stage of manufacturing where Australia can once again be very competitive because we are good at all that stuff. And in the same line, if you like, the announcements coming out of what was Lee Creek Energy, now New Riser, about the establishment of a very large urea plant up in Lee Creek, running off the coal seam, underground generated coal seam gas, which will be stripped of the carbon dioxide and be a carbon neutral urea plant. I mean, that is the steps forward on new technologies. Green steel is another one, and we will invest in those types of projects. And we want to try and help Sanjeev Gupta get that plant up in Whyalla up to speed, and being one of the first and world leading when it comes to green steel technology. So a whole heap of things. A long way from finish, but I'm pretty happy with what we've done so far, I'd have to say, Ricky.
Yeah, plenty on the agenda and plenty to follow up in the next 30-odd days before the 21 May election date. Rowan Ramsey, thanks for joining us from Port Lincoln today.
Good to be with you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.